Hey guys, Parfax here, and today we're going to be talking about a few different articles on Reddit. So we have two different things we're looking at. First, we're going to look at the undocumented combat changes that are on the PTR, and then we're going to look at the Umbra Shard changes to the mutation system. All right, let's get started. All right, so let's go over the combat changes. First, we have a Rapier change here. We knew some of this was on here, but we have Insult to Injury Riposte perk. If Riposte successfully hits a target, gain Empowered, increasing damage by 10% for 3 seconds. That is the new one. It used to say if Riposte was triggered successfully, all of your attacks become uninterruptible for 3 seconds. So this is a, I guess, buff if you want to play like the 1v1 Rapier playstyle where once you riposte them, you dodge back and hit them with the fully charged heavy. But when it comes to trying to get away from the Zerg, this is a huge nerf. Then we have a very odd change with Taunt, Flourish, and Finish. And they've now been changed to slash damage. This means they are going to do less damage. I know that especially Flourish did a decent amount of damage, but it was a very like setup based playstyle. You had to stack a few bleeds Tonto, then get the Flourish and Finish off. And I'm assuming it's just the Flourish, so that's not a big deal. The Finish is still going to do the big pop damage. But they do slash, so I understand why they changed it, but it's a little odd changing that damage on the Rapier because it really didn't need a damage decrease for that. Next, we have some well, nerfs to the Fire Staff. Now, one of them is a buff, two of them are nerf, one of which is already on live. But we have a Pillar of Fire, reduce this ability's cooldown by, it used to be 25%, now 30% per enemy hit. But instead of 3-person max, it is now 2. And this isn't a very much used skill anymore. This is very, people are going more of the flamethrower route. That's kind of the most viable way to play Fire Staff at the moment. I mean, I'm going to have a build coming out very soon that doesn't use Pillar Fire, but it doesn't use a Flamethrower either. So make sure you watch that. It's a pretty interesting build. You guys voted on it, so it's pretty fun. But this is a buff if you only hit 1 or 2 enemies, but it's a pretty big nerf in like big war skill or like in a big war OPR gameplay where you're hitting like 3 targets. So instead of 75%, now you can only get 60%. It's not a huge nerf, and it's kind of a little bit more of actually, it's not even in line. This is still like the best refreshing perk out there. But yeah, it's a little odd. I'm not going to lie. I would have loved to seen a lot of the other refreshing perks get a little bit of a change. But yeah, Pillar of Fire, if you only hit 1 or 2 targets, it's a buff. If not, it's a nerf. Then we have Efficient Burnout, and it says until your next hit, deal 33% increase the fire damage, and your mana regen is increased by 20%. Is getting a change to after using Burnout, gain 132% mana regen rate for 8 seconds. Additionally, your next attack deals 33% increased fire damage. So yeah, this is a nice little buff to it. We'll have to see how its interactions work, see if you can still flamethrower, which I'm assuming you can. But this is a nice little buff to Efficient Burnout. Then we have just the change to Empowered Meteor Shower, which is supposed to be on live already. And it just says no longer persist on weapon swap, even when slotted in your armor. So, yeah, I think pretty sure that's on live already. Next, we have Ice Gauntlet, and we got some pretty big nerfs here. So we have Weakening Gust. It is an Ice Storm perk, and it used to say incoming damage increased by 10% for 3 seconds to targets in Ice Storm while they are below 50% health. And now just says Ice Storm damage is increased by 10% to enemies below 50% health. This is a massive nerf. This means only your Ice Storm will deal extra damage when they're below 50% health instead of just them taking the 10% increased ice damage. And then we have the big nerf to the Ice Gauntlet, which is Ultimate Chill, the Ice Gauntlet Capstone perk. And it says 25% increased ice damage to targets now only applies to the damage from the primary Ice Gauntlet user. Allied damage from ice gems, elements, perks no longer benefit from this perk. So it seems that if you're running like the BBIG build, you're still going to want Frost Attunement because you have an Ice Gauntlet, it's still going to apply that extra damage. But it seems that, the people just running Ice Gems in your war because you're going to have an Ice Storm down, that's not going to be a thing anymore. Next, Burst Pylon or Pylon Burst skill perk. It says Ice Pylon deals 10% increased damage. Also, deal a burst of damage to foes within 3 meters. And it used to say whenever it fires, and now it's every 2 seconds. This is actually a pretty big nerf. I'm not sure why they went so heavy. I mean, I think Ice Gauntlet's great. People don't think Ice Gauntlet is very good. They think it's very average. But we got a couple nerfs here. I'm not sure why we're nerfing Burst Pylon, or Pylon Burst. Apparently I'm dyslexic. But yeah, it's a very odd change here. Every 2 seconds it's going to burst. And maybe it's just going to, even if it's not firing, it's still going to burst. But yeah, interesting change. Now we're going to get to what I believe is going to be the biggest nerf next patch. And it essentially is, if you have a weapon perk, it is not going to persist on weapon swap. So you see here, Fortified Shield Rush no longer persists on weapon swap, even when slotted on armor. This is a huge nerf to a lot of these builds. For instance, I put out my best PvE DPS with all-around DPS with Spear, with the perk on it, the Fortifying Perforate. That perk no longer is very good unless you're just going to stay on the shield, or the Spear. So yeah, this is a massive, massive nerf. I'm not very big fan of this. Now means that your 2 weapons that you're using, they don't have to synergize with each other. There's no like cool, interesting combos that you can kind of do. It's just you got one weapon, you use it. You got the other weapon, you use it. There's no real now, synergy that you really have to work with, because they're just really not going to work well together anymore. I think this is actually a bad change for the game. I thought it made for more interesting gameplay, or interesting builds, but now they're just straight up nerfing them. So yeah, we're going to keep going down, but I think this is a very bad change for the game. We also have Aerial Transmission. Infected throw perks. Weakened disease debuffs persist correctly on affected targets when disease cloud disappears. This is actually a good change. We have a musket. Again, accelerated trap no longer persists on weapon swap. Empowering shooter stance no longer persists on weapon swap. Same thing with empowering explosive arrow, venturing claw, fortifying perforate, mending protection. Mending protection. This is massive. I mean, maybe we'll be able to kill a healer a little bit more, but still probably not. Still don't like the change. And here, again, no longer persists on weapon swapping between weapons. Keenly perk, so keenly empowered. Keen speed gets a pretty big nerf here. So on critical hit, gain 20% haste for 5 seconds with a 10-second cooldown. So we got a nerf here. And then we have Shirking Energy with another big nerf, and dodging through an attack with light equip load grants 29 stamina. Instead of that, we get a 15 stamina with a 6-second cooldown. This is actually a pretty big nerf. I'm not sure if this is going to be a best perk anymore. I imagine it will, and I imagine people will continue with it. But it'll be interesting to see if people start going more of the lines of maybe like a Shirking Fortification, maybe a Refreshing. I definitely don't see it as something being better than Refreshing. But it is a little bit of a nerf to light armor builds. Keen Speed, I love Keen Speed, and this is a huge nerf to Keen Speed. And all the Keenly perks, except for Keenly Jagged, stuff that applies to enemies, like if you put a dot on them, those persist. But you're Keenly Fortified, big nerf. Keenly Empowered, big nerf. So I hate this change. I really, really, really hate this change. But it is what it is. And we'll see, maybe it will round out the weapons a little bit more, but I now find that it's just going to be more generic. You're not going to be able to do interesting backbar weapons. You're not going to be able to have to decide whether you want to do damage or utility. Now you're just going to deal damage, and that's it. That's all you care about now. Damage, you don't care about any utility. It's just deal damage, and that's it. Next, let's go ahead and look at the Umbral change. And I don't know if I said it, but Nidkin was the one that posted this. He posted it a couple days ago about it. Very good. I've actually read a few of his posts. He actually responds quite a bit on the forums. And then we have a post by Zegger. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it is the Umbra Shard change. Now with these, you're going to see the mutations, the old and the new. And these are massive changes. If you didn't know, I think they might have a change here about the Umbra Shard change. They basically reworked how Umbra Shards worked. I did a video on that a while ago. But this is the mutation changes. This is how much shards you're going to get in the mutations. So currently for bronze, we're just going to talk about gold. We'll go down there. For an M1, you're getting 40. Next patch, you're going to get 600. So in order to get 600 before, you had to go all the way up to an M6. So that's a pretty massive change. It's now going to be more rewarding to get gold on an M1. The only thing that I don't like here is this really screws PvP players. Before, you could get your armor to 620 really easy. But now they've kind of screwed over PvP players, and you're not really getting any extra Umbra Shards unless you are doing OPR. So this is unfortunate for us PvP players, but it just means that, you know, they really want to force us to start doing mutations, which I did M10s anyway, but I only did them when they were like the easy ones. I mean, I've done pretty much all the mutations in M10. There's a couple that I haven't done. I don't think I've done Dynasty, but you know, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I actually don't like this change. I don't mind this change, we'll put it that way, but I wish they would give us more for doing PvP. Now they basically gave us the change like for OPR and stuff like that based on the current system. So they really just need to up the Umbra Shards you get for doing PvP stuff. So then we'll go over here. We got on M2, instead of 60, we're getting 800. And then in 3s, instead of 80, we're getting 1,000. And then you see 1,400, 1,800, 24, 3,000. And then it starts going up, right? And then we have 3,800. And then we get the next little, you know, increase in difficulty to 4,800 and to 6,000. So it's really not going to affect everything above 6 very much, but it's going to affect under everything below 6 very much so. So these are pretty big changes, and this is going to affect fresh start servers a bunch. If you're going to be doing mutations right off the bat whenever fresh start comes around, this is going to be a nice change. You're going to allow to kind of flow through the mutations really quickly. The one problem I can see here is right now, currently, many people don't actually do mid to low level mutations. You really see 10s, you see some 1s, and honestly, not a whole lot in between. Sometimes you'll see some 9s, some 8s. But right now, you can basically get to 620 by doing Umbra Shard Gypsum cast, and this is going to make it to where you can't. Or at least not in a timely manner. It's going to be a little bit difficult to really slog through that by doing it the way we did. This kind of really screws PvP players, and that's unfortunate, you know, because myself, I'm a PvP player main. But yeah, so we will see. I just hope that this doesn't mean that people just take way longer to actually get to 625 because people just aren't running the mutations. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That was the video for today. If you haven't seen my rankings video from yesterday, make sure you go ahead and watch that. We have a pretty cool build come out. Hopefully it's going to come out on Friday. The Firestaff Sword and Shield. You guys voted on it. By the time this comes out, I've probably already spent 10 hours playing it. When I recorded this video, I've probably got about 6 hours in already on it. But, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, like always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.